Hey, my Legion, how y'all doing today? This is a review I wanted to do last Saturday night, and it just ended up not happening. Um, and it's a Laurel Hardy review, and since then I added on to it just newer stuff that I've seen, and um, and this all came about because I remember on CW, whenever they had stuff for Saturday mornings and Saturday afternoons that have changed. They used to have a show called On the Spot that was on at like 12:30, I think. And I love that, but they still have the one thing that they still have is Made in Hollywood, which they showed usually on Saturday and Sunday around noontime or something like that. And I remember this was last year, and they were talking about that Holmes and Watson thing with John C. Riley and Will Ferrell, which was a huge bomb, and people saying they hated it, walked out of it, and stuff like that. And they had an interview with John C. Riley, and he said he's working on what he's been. I don't know when they filmed the interview, and he said, "What have you been by? I've been studying Oliver Hardy because he's going to be in a movie called Stan Ollie." Stan Ollie, I was really excited to hear about that. And I never knew. I thought it was going to be a future project. I don't know when they filmed this, and then it came out in January. Well, anyways, I didn't know about it, and then a week or so later, they had like a thing from Sunday Morning, a show I used to watch all the time on CBS. Charles Perrault used to host the show. I didn't know the show was still on. I remember watching in the '80s and stuff, and maybe the '90s. I just liked how unusual it was. And I know Norm Macdonald did a funny imitation of him on a Saturday Night Live skit, which I thought was really funny. And Jane Polly was on it. She was talking about Laurel Hardy and Stan Ollie, and I remember sharing that to some people on Facebook. I said, "Too bad people don't know about that." And my friend Nicholas Jackson commented that where he works at, a lot of his coworkers never heard of him before. He was a big fan though. So I gotta share a thing. I give him a shout out too. Well, anyways, with Stan Ollie, I mean, I saw that because I didn't know how they were going to do it, and there's very respectful imitations. And then if I wouldn't have found out about that, I would have seen like one or two trailers when we went to the movies a couple times. I think when we went to see Glass, they had it, and they had it. I think, and it played in the Tinseltown. And then after we went to see Glass the next week, they only had one showing. It didn't do very well at the box office, which is sad because I don't think maybe people just don't care about them anymore. I think the movie looked great though. I definitely want to see it. And there's other imitators that I've seen that weren't very good. I remember I used to watch the show Perfect Strangers on when I was growing up, and then even when in the army in Germany and stuff like that. Then when I went to Fort Bragg, it was still on, but the reception was bad, right? I couldn't get ABC that well, so my ABC watching was very limited. And they were on. I think they did a TGIF thing, and they were on there at like 9 o'clock. And I did watch. They did a Laurel Hardy thing, which was awful. I thought it was awful, and it was weird because Bronson Pinchot played Laurel, and then he went on doing one in a movie I saw in Plex, Children's Plex, a couple of times. Dad and I watched it. It was All New Adventures of Laurel and Hardy for Love or Mummy that was made in like 1999. I think I saw a year or two later on Plex. And that used to be like a free station on cable, and every day they'd have a different themed movie. It'd be like thriller, and they were never R-rated movies. It'd be like GPG, PG-13, or maybe unrated. But they never had R-rated stuff there. And on Sunday they had usually like family films, and that was on, and that was actually pretty good. I only laughed once, but it was an enjoyable movie. I thought Brunson Pinchot did a good job of staying low on that one. And I remember Chuck McCann used to do commercials for Standard Oil TV playing Oliver Hardy. I thought he did a great job. I never knew who played Stan Laurel though, but I've seen a lot of bad imitations of Laurel and Hardy. But I'm glad that they, from what I've seen, I want to see the movie. It looked like they did him justice on that. Well, anyways, my I when I grew up, I was always familiar with some of the comedy teams, the more recognizable ones from the past. Three Stooges. Well, Charlie Chaplin, he was like one guy. Three Stooges, Little Rascals. They showed Little Rascals on ABC all the time as a kid. I remember watching a lot of those. Laurel Hardy, Marx Brothers, Abbott Costello, and I was familiar with a lot of their stuff. I really enjoyed it. And much to my surprise, going in the army, especially in Germany, I was a fan of Three Stooges, and all the other people like, this is stupid. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Because they used to have, on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock, they'd have a bunch of different shows. They had Kung Fu, which people hated because they didn't like West of these other kids. I mean, they were only like a year or two younger than me, and they all hated it. They hated comedy, and even the older people hated comedy. And all they did was complain about that. And I know my friend John, I was telling John about it. He was being diplomatic. Well, people had different taste buds. Like, oh my God. And then they had Laurel and Hardy on for an hour. I remember watching laugh my ass off. I thought it was funny. Why, this is stupid. It's the dumbest thing. It's not funny at all. I remember watching Way Out West, and they went to a song and dance, and my friend said, this is stupid. And then, going into Germany, stuff like that, my one friend said, boy, this stuff is boring. I remember getting a Laurel and Hardy one called Be Big, which is really funny, a 20-minute short. And he said, you always get the most boringest, dumbest movies. Sound like Odorous right there. And then in Fort Detrick, Maryland, I had a friend named Ray Brooks, and he appreciated old comedy. He said, this is classics. And there, they appreciated the comedy. I don't understand what it was. And it seemed like in Germany, a lot of the other soldiers didn't appreciate comedy. They just wanted to be miserable. I don't know why. They were afraid to laugh or something. But I grew up with those people. I mean, those comedy. And then going after the army, it went back to normal. Just like what I liked. But I liked that stuff growing up. And there were some other comedy teams I didn't know as much, like Wheeler and Woolsey or something like that. I saw like one of their movies. Or Ritz Brothers, I saw one of their movies. And they were just like imitations of, some of the other, like the Marx Brothers. Well, anyways, I wanted to do this video, and I took notes about it. So that was the standalone in my army experience. Now I want to talk about the Flying Deuces, and I rewatched this, and this is the Stan and Laurel and Hardy movie I'm the most familiar with. I had the biggest history with, and so this goes all the way back to the 80s. On Channel 54, our PBS station, Sunday mornings were awesome. We'd get up, I think at 10 or 10:30. I think it was 10:30. They'd have sneak previews on, and that was when Siskel and Ebert were on. And then they'd have like Jeffrey Lyons and Michael Medved was on it. And then after that, they'd have an hour of Ernie Kovacs, and that's another old comedian. His classic show I remember watching. And Mom said, "I'm not letting you watch Ernie Kovacs anymore," just to try to punish me. My dad liked the show, but I still watched it. And then at noon, they had Matinee at DeBeach. My mom said, "You're not allowed to watch that anymore." I still watched it, though. Just to be mean and cruel to me. Because that's the way she was, and she still is like that. And Matinee at DeBeach was a very unique show. It had like a guy opening up. I don't know who remembers that show on PBS. But I think it was like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. It was a long show. Maybe it was just 2 hours. Because they had no commercials on there. And a guy introducing it. And then they'd have like, I can't remember the exact order. They have a newsreel, cartoon, and then they have Cliffhanger. I remember Cliffhanger like The Phantom Empire with Gene Autry, which was a slash western, musical, comedy, sci-fi, which was really good. Crash. Or Buster Crabbe is in Undersea Kingdom. They were kind of like the same. And they'd have like Zorro. And they'd have Junior G-Men with Bowery Boys. They call them East Side Kids in this one. Those were great too. And they have and then they'd have a movie. And the movie would be like 70 minutes or a little bit less than that. They'd have they didn't have horror films. The only horror film I remember they had on there was Devil Bat. And they had one called The Last Mile, which is really controversial at the time about death row and stuff. But I remember the Flying Deuces, and that was the Laurel Hardy one. I remember watching that and really enjoying it. And that was the one where I'm gonna tell you a brief synopsis of it, and that ends up being a public domain movie, and it's on YouTube for free. Or I mean, you could. There's different options on YouTube. Definitely get there's a restored version, and I mean for these, make sure you get the longest one. I think it's like an hour and 9 minutes or 70 minutes, and it revolves around them being in Paris, and this one girl, and Oliver Hardy loves this one girl who's like an innkeeper's daughter and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, then her and the girls are giggling and say, boy, he's so sweet doing all this stuff. But she was actually married. And she didn't tell him she didn't want to hurt his feelings. And then, he just thought she'd be nice to her. And then she said, I want to marry you. And said, well, I can't. I'm married. And then he was heartbroken. And then he wanted to kill himself, jump off this bridge, and he was going to take Laura with him. And then this one guy said, what are you guys doing? And he said, we're going to end our lives and stuff like that. And he said, why don't you join over a girl? And he said, why don't you join the French Foreign Legion? So why do you want to do that? To forget. And they go to French Foreign, and a whole bunch of stuff. And it's really a funny movie. It's awesome. It's hilarious. I give that a 10 out of 10. It's a wonderful movie. And I remember, like I said, I watched it again. And I remember in Fort Bragg, they had a Family Dollar there, and I ended up buying a copy of that because, like I said, public domain. And it was a decent copy, but I mean, this restored version I saw on YouTube was really awesome. I have a thumbnail for that, which I'm going to use for. I took a screenshot I'm going to use for the thumbnail of this video, and I love that movie. It's probably the one I'm most familiar with, Flying Deuces. I highly recommend it, from Laurel Hardy, 10 out of 10. And now, I mean, I've seen some other movies of theirs. And I want to talk about Fixer Uppers, and that was one about they were selling like greeting cards, and then this one girl was lovelorn, and she said, "Why don't you?" She said, "Why don't I?" She wanted to get her husband back or something like that, or why don't you make him jealous and stuff like that? He challenged Oliver to a duel, and that was a great one too. That was a 9 out of 10. The ending is a little weak. Sometimes the endings of some of these are weak, I see for some of the Three Stooges, they're great until the ending, and the ending like peters out, or it doesn't really have much of an ending to it. 9 out of 10. Next was Another Fine Mess. Can I remember Blake Edwards? Let me double check that right now. I think Blake Fine Mess was Fine Mess. Yeah, Blake Edwards did Fine Mess in 1989, which I was a big fan of. People hated the movie though, but I thought it was funny. I think it was a remake of a couple Laurel Hardy movies. That's what I was That's what I was told about. I mean, they had Another Fine Mess. I heard it was a remake of that and The Music Box, but I don't know how true that is. That's what I was always told. And I saw Another Fine Mess, and they were imitating like the Maid and Butler and stuff like that. Because I think Howie Mandel did that in the Blake Edwards movie. And I remember hearing about The Music Box for the longest time, and not seeing it till much later when I was in Germany. They were selling like these 90-minute videos of Laurel Hardy. I only bought one. I should have bought both. And it was like four short subjects. They usually like 20 minutes, so it was probably like an hour and 40 minutes. And they had Music Box. I think I got the one that was long and had Music Box in it. And that was great. I think I won them an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, for short subject for Laurel Hardy. And that's a 10 out of 10, too. Another Fine Mess. The Blake Edwards Fine Mess 10. I love the movie. I remember showing it for AJ, and he loved it. Another Fine Mess was a great one they did, too. That was a 10 out of 10, because the situation they got into was crazy. Now, the next one is one I kind of have a history with, called Babes in Toryland, also known as March of the Wooden Soldiers. Now, when I got out of the Army, I can't remember if I got my stuff yet from Fort Bragg, including my TV and stuff. I think my dad had an old TV. So he moved stuff around. I ended up going down to one, and my dad switched some stuff around. And they had, like, Sunday afternoon, they had a special thing of Babes in Toyland. I think you call it Babes in Toyland March of Wooden, so same title. Yeah, I was going to watch it. We were going to try to use the video caster again. It didn't work because Dad wanted to watch football on the other TV, and then I just got, I missed some. I said, well, hell with it. I just didn't watch it, or I lost interest or something. And it wasn't until much later that I saw it. This was like in the early '90s. I saw it Friday, 2 days ago, and the colorized version, because I tried to watch it in a black and white version. It was so blurry. The colorized version was a lot more focused. It was easier to see. I don't believe in colorizing black and white, but it was easier to see for this one. And it's really a bizarre film. Uh, it starts off in Toyland, which is like a land of Mother Goose. You have a bunch of the characters. Three little pigs. They were like people in costumes. The costumes are really weird in it. And they have the cat with the fiddle. Very bizarre costume. As a grown man, and it looked really weird. And then the weirder was the mouse that he was chasing, and the mouse was a monkey in a costume with a mouse face show. Very bizarre. And they had like Tom Thumb and Little Bo Peep and an old one living in a shoe, which was Bo Peep's mother or something like that, and all the characters. And then you see Little Bo Peep, and you see Oliver Hardy. It was Stanley Dumb and Oliver Dumb, or I can't remember the names. And they lived in the shoe with the mother, and they worked for the toy maker that I guess they made toys for Santa. And then Barnaby wanted to marry Little Bo Peep. Now, Little Bo Peep in this movie is probably about 20, 21, 22, and not a little girl. That would have been really creepy. And he wanted to marry her, and she said no. And he said what? He had that mortgage, and he said he was going to foreclose on old Mother Hubbard's house, so she'd be out in the street because he owed her money. And they have like some musical interludes in it, but I mean, it takes a little while to get to it. They have like a beginning with Mother Goose singing and stuff. I mean, this is very old fashioned. It's kind of childish, but whenever, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. And then I think the colorization helped this time. I think they were trying to do like their version of Wizard of Oz, just like Laurel Hardy did a Jack and the Beanstalk movie, which was aimed for kids. And they had musical interludes in this one too. But that was funny. But when they first start getting the stand and all the Hardy stuff, like 10 minutes in, it starts really taking off. That it's very funny. It's really funny. It's just a bizarre film, and they have like the world of Bogeyland. You see the boogeyman and stuff like that. That might be too scary for kids. They were really creepy, and then with the way they handled them was somewhat violent. But I mean, I love the movie. It just took me a little while to get into it. It's just such a bizarre, so bizarre, and such a bizarre concept. I know I used to have a series of Disney books, and they had like a Babes in Toyland thing that I got when I was real little. And I always want to see the Babes in Toyland for Disney. I mean, it's not. I've never seen it, but I give the Babes in Toyland March of the Wood / March of the Wooden Soldiers. Laurel Hardy 10 out of 10. It's great. And after that, they had some other movies. I talked about documentaries and an interview I seen with them. And I remember in Germany getting This Is Your Life. I guess that was the last television appearance of Laurel and Hardy. And there was a little background on the documentary. They said that they didn't know if they'd accept them as real people, regular people. And they were like bewildered and stuff. I guess Dan was mad that he wasn't getting any money. He was doing a free appearance because he had financial troubles. I'll get more than that in the video. But I remember buying that in Germany. And I think this one video rental guide I had give that a turkey, saying that was like a bad appearance because Ralph Edwards was like insulting Stan, not Stan, but Oliver Hardy for his weight a little bit. But I mean, it's very informative. It's a great show. And they talk about that in the documentary I'm going to review last. But I actually like This Is Your Life. It's really good. It was just in live TV. And they had to ad-lib some. Because that was I think they were taken by surprise in 1954. That was like 3 years after Utopia, which was a huge flop. And a lot of critics say it's the worst movie. Because I remember it took me a while to get that. And I remember in McCory's, I used to go to McCory's all the time. They used to have like public domain videotapes I used to buy, like $2 or $3, and they had Utopia there, and I wanted to see it, and I bought it, and I actually really like Utopia. I heard that it was a miserable experience. It was like a French Italian production. It took like a year. It's supposed to be like made in like 2 months shoot, and it ended up being like took like a year to make. I know Laurel. There was a radio interview. Laurel was saying, and this the radio interview I saw was like a week or two after uh, Oliver Hardy passed away, and he said it was a miserable experience. And he said he's glad it only got a limited run in the States, but I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, I enjoyed Utopia. It's not quite as good as their other stuff, but I give that a 8 out of 10. It was just interesting. You know, it was also known as That's Okay, and a lot of people say it. I mean, but there's a clip of them. They had the movie on YouTube, and people were saying that they liked the movie, and they said they didn't think it was as bad as all the critics said it was. But I mean, it was like an experience like. I remember they used to have some called. I got a thing, Ilsa Live from the Dive, that was filmed in '85. That Rick Sullivan used to have a place called the Dive in New York, I guess, and he had like, like horror movie personalities talk and stuff. I got Diane Thorne from the Ilsa movies, and she did one called Wanda the Wicked Warden, which is later retitled Ilsa the Wicked Warden. Jess Franco did, and he said that on the set no one spoke the same language. He said her husband slash manager said it was wonderful but insane. But in this one, no one spoke the same language, and I guess Stan and Ollie were the only people who spoke English, and he had some other people helping him out or something like that. His crew was French and Italian, and it was just a mess. But I did like the movie though. And that the little interview, they're talking about that, and he said it was understudy for Charlie Chaplin a long time ago, and they mentioned like. Stan mentioned like he played second fiddle. There was like something Jimmy Wonder or something like that, where Stan was supposed to be playing like in the background character, and Charlie Chaplin said he didn't want to do it. He didn't like the character, something like that. So they made Stan Laurel like with a day's notice play that character. This is back when they were doing like theater shows, like 5 to 7 shows a day, 7 days a week, and he said it was grueling. I can just imagine. It was back before they became famous in like the early 1900s. And Charlie Chaplin was watching the performances for after 3 days. He said, "Well, I want to play this character. I like him now." So they put Stan Laurel back in the background and Charlie Chaplin in front, which is kind of messed up. And I give that radio interview. I can't remember what the name of it was. No, I think it was Turning Point. I think. I give that 10 out of 10. It's very informative. And then last but not least was Hats Off documentary. And there's a YouTube channel I found out about called Orchard on Demand, which has a lot of documentaries and stuff like that. Pretty informative stuff. I mean, not every documentary is for everybody. I don't want to see every documentary because it all depends on what I'm interested in. And I guess they had the Hats Off documentary made in 2005. And it's like a lot of the documentaries I remember getting... buying on VHS, usually like a guy doing voiceover with a lot of stock footage or photos or public domain stuff. In this one, it talks more about their personal lives. And I never knew how tragic they were. The problems with marriages and money and gambling and alcohol and stuff. Because you just never think about that. And it's I mean, they talk about movie reviews, but it's eye-opening how sad it was. And they talk about like Sons of the Desert and the Laurel Hardy Museum and all the Hardy Museum and stuff like that. It's very informative. I really like it. It's on Orchard on Demand. I give that a 10 out of 10, even though, they have generic stuff. But, I mean, it's just fascinating hearing about how bad their tragic life was. Their real life was. And it's just like a lot of times with comedians and stuff like that, there's lots of tears behind the laughter. And their personal lives are pretty tragic. Just like Jim Carrey had some really depressing things about his mom being sick and trying to cheer her up through his comedy and stuff. It's sad. But that's a fascinating comedy. It's only about a fascinating documentary. It's only about 57 minutes long. It's on Orchard on Demand. I give that 10 out of 10. So I want to do this just because of Stan and Ollie. When I do want to see Stan and Ollie, when I am able to see the movie, I definitely want to do a review of that. And there's lots of other Laurel Hardy stuff I haven't seen, and there's so much out there. But there's some stuff I do want to catch up on when I have the time, but I want to make sure to do this video. I knew it was going to be a long one. And I wanted to try to shoot for Sunday. I shot for Sunday last weekend, and that didn't happen. But I wanted to do this now, and I hope you like this video. Laurel Hardy. I want to dedicate my friend Nicholas Jackson. I'm going to share it to him on Facebook. So, I hope you like this video, everybody. Until next time, please. Hear my legion. It was sad that a lot of kids today don't know about the classic comedy teams and stuff like that. I know that, because I know Stan and Ollie's supposed to focus on their later lives touring in England and stuff like that, and I think that's when they started finding out how popular they were, and they were getting a new audience of fans through kids and stuff like that. Start seeing their stuff on TV, just like when the Three Stooges, they stopped doing their stuff, and then they teamed up with Curly Joe, and a lot of people don't like Curly Joe, say he's lame dude, but they went on tour and they did the cartoons and stuff like that, and they were really more popular with kids than ever. And they even had a show on in 2001 in the afternoon about Laurel and Hardy, about their cartoons and stuff like that. Those are the old ones. And they weren't very good. I remember the one Saturday morning that I think Filmation did that weren't too bad, but I ain't seen those in ages. But I'm talking about the really old ones. They had like a little vignette with him and a little live action thing. I actually put a couple on my channel. I since took them down. I kind of wish they always got views though, but they weren't very good. So I hope you like this video, everybody. Until next time, please take care, my legion.